If a woman fed you pate that turned out to be chip, what would you do?
That's the one you want. You're an insane person. That was I will say that was the moment in this movie where I started screaming. I was like, "What the fuck is this movie?" I'm very glad he was not in the room watching this movie. He probably would have had a conniption. Because fun fact, my dog watches movies and like seemingly can perceive what's happening. He will react to like things happening like a little person. Like
That's
we watched oh, what did I watch? I watched fucking The Dark Knight the other day with Maddie,
yeah.
and he just reacted so viscerally to the Joker jump scare. And he's just like he like freaked.
Hmm.
I was just like, "Are you?" He's looking at me right now, like, "Dad, why are you telling all my secrets to Uncle Boat?" But oh well.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Fimografeed. That is Caleb Coho,
And that is Caleb Boatman.
and today we are breaking down Danny DeVito's second film, 1989's *The War of the Roses*, starring Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. So this is a film I've seen before. You've never seen it.
No,
I to kind of pull the rug behind the curtain. This is my favorite of DeVito's films, of the ones I've seen anyway. I really like this one. I just really get on this one's wavelength. I'm very curious to get into it, but do we have any context before we start talking about it?
no. Here's the thing. We talked about this before. DeVito does not talk about his films like at all. Like we cannot find anything about his thought process or like and all the makings of his movies are like super simple and straightforward and easy. So there's like no drama to delve into. There's really nothing here. And this is weirdly a pretty solid awards contender in 1989. That's a fun fact.
One thing I have, which I think is kind of interesting, is this movie was preceded by a The Simpsons short from the Tracy Ullman Show. So before The Simpsons was even a thing. So that's really interesting.
I wonder if there's like a James L. Brooks connection to this movie that somehow I don't know how, but maybe.
James L. Brooks produced it, and like he and
Okay,
DeVito were friends. So
there you
yeah.
go. Yeah, there's the
Mhm.
connection. He probably was like DeVito, who made a really surprising hit indie comedy like a couple years ago with Billy Crystal that made money, is making another movie and it's gonna make money. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna use it to backdoor pilot this thing that's gonna be the most successful television show of all time.
Mhm.
He's a smart man, that James L. Brooks.
Oh, and the guy who Danny DeVito is talking to, like the guy who he's telling the story to,
Mhm.
that's Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer
Oh, no
Simpson.
way. Is it actually?
Yeah,
Oh, yo, that's wild.
that's funny. Which is funny because on the show, on The Simpsons, DeVito plays Homer's brother.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah.
That's wild. You know
So
what would
there
be a
you
good
go.
podcast? We keep doing this all the time, but what would be a good podcast is to do a Simpsons podcast, but I've never seen any of it except for like one or two episodes.
If you would be willing to stick with it, I would
Yeah,
totally be down to do a Simpsons podcast.
maybe.
The
I feel like
problem
this is
is,
like
like,
I feel like this is an
season one of
experiment.
The Simpsons is not good.
Well, no, neither is season one of Family Guy, and I
Like,
like
season
Family
one of most comedies is just
Guy. Yeah,
usually bad. Most
right.
comedies, like with the exception of Arrested Development and The Good Place and Community. And How I Met Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother's season
And
one.
How I Met Your Mother's first season is very good. And I will give Friends this. They get better as they go along and they get worse as they go along. But the first season is pretty okay. Like the
I
first season's
I
pretty
just don't
solid.
like Friends. I just don't.
Right, but I think like as someone who likes Friends, like that's a show that like definitely has its weak points, but the first season is like a good starting season. Like they get better, How I Met Your Mother gets better, but both shows' first seasons are like good.
That's fair. But yeah, do we want to just jump into the movie?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. I think I'm lagging a little bit, but
Yeah,
that's
a little
okay.
bit.
I really love the first joke in this movie. which is the opening credits. You see, just this really nice white silk, and then the names over it. And then it's revealed that it's a handkerchief, and Danny DeVito blows his nose into it. I think that's just a great way to kind of set up the tone for this movie very early on. And I really love just kind of the whole smoky, like film noirish atmosphere that is built up because of DeVito's like narration and presence. Like I just love the setup of like, I quit smoking for the longest time, and then Mrs. Rose came into my office and I smoked that cigarette. Like, I think that's such a great vibe. And I want to take a moment just to shout out, I really love the way this movie looks. I just think DeVito directs this one really well. It has a very Burton feel to it. I really like it.
I don't know if I go so far to say Burton feel. I will give DeVito this. I think he improves as a director from movie 1 to movie 2. I think he directs this movie better than he does Throw Mama from the Train. I think for me, I actually think weirdly enough, it's my opposite issue with the last movie, where the first movie, I think the direction is a little bit off, and I can't quite gauge like what part of the movie we should focus here and less here, and it's all over the place. This one is almost the opposite issue, where I think like he has what he wants to focus on down. I think that the structure of the film on a script level has moments where I get lost. Like it loses me. Like full stop. And a lot of that is when we like divert into Danny DeVito. Like I get why you like the noir narration, and I actually don't have a problem with his narration. I think it's kind of funny. But I think anytime we take like a small pit stop into like DeVito's part of the story or like DeVito's like influence, it takes me out of the movie for whatever reason. I don't really like DeVito's character, and I don't really understand his point to the movie outside of like him like being the like loyal, like almost the audience insert referee. But like I don't think that character needs to be part of the story in the way he is. So I don't know. He kind of throws me off.
Understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I think I like that it's this sleazeball who, through way of being exposed to these real monsters, becomes a better person because by proxy of being, warned by the cautionary tale of the roses.
I guess. I just don't. I don't feel a deep need for this character to have an arc like that front and center. Where it's like I feel like you can make him even like you can downplay that role more and maybe take him out of being the audience POV sort of character at times and still have that arc happen through 3 or 4 scenes of the movie, and it's more effective as like a tertiary arc.
Fair.
Like,
I also
even more tertiary arc, I guess.
But I feel like you're overestimating a little bit how much he's in the movie, because I guess I don't feel like he's in the movie as much as you say he is. Like he's in it.
Right. Well, I'm speaking too much when I say secondary. I mean, I feel like he can be in it even less. Where I feel like he's not that important, and I feel like within the first like 50 minutes, he's in it 3-4 times, and all of those scenes feel unnecessary. So that's sort of my big issue. Is like I feel like a lot of the times we detour outside of like 1 or 2 specific moments within those scenes. I feel like they don't need to be there, and DeVito's just like, I wanted to play this character, and I beefed up his role so I could play the character that could have been, I don't fucking Wilford Brimley or Robert Wuhl or some 80s character actor that doesn't.
I really don't think either of those two people could have played this.
I think Robert Wuhl would have been really good at this part. I'm just saying.
I'll give you Robert Wuhl. Wilford Brimley, no way.
No, but I was just trying to think of character actors from the 80s. But Robert Wuhl definitely could have killed this part, actually.
I'll give you Robert Wuhl. Robert Wuhl needed more work in general.
Robert Wuhl did not get the career he deserves because he is low-key one of the best elements of Batman 89. Like,
I really like him in Batman 89. He's very
really
funny.
Really good, and should have gotten, like, he should have been, like, at the very least, the go-to best friend in a romantic comedy at least twice in a high-profile 90s. Like
Yeah.
he's been the best. Like in You've Got Mail or Sleepless in Seattle or one of those like big time. These are the romantic comedies or romance films of the decade. Robert Wool should have either been the second or third highest billed actor in it, either as the asshole that's trying to take the girl or the best friend.
Honestly, like, don't get me wrong. I really like Bruno Kirby in When Harry Met Sally, but he totally could have played the Bruno Kirby part.
Oh, Robert Wool could have absolutely just hit a home run in that part. There's a lot of parts I can think of where Robert Wool, honestly, I think the one role where I straight up think that if they went for it and wanted to get crazy and wanted to give him a leading role, he'd do really good in is if they dropped him into the Hudsucker Proxy. Like you can put him in the lead role of the Hudsucker Proxy,
No,
he would hit a home run.
I think you have the same problem that you do with Tim Robbins, which is you don't cast the sleaze bag. If
But I
you
think
are
Robert Wool can be earnest.
what?
Robert Wool can be so earnest.
I would not, but I would have the same problem I would with Tim Robbins. Again, the person you cast in that role is Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks. But I'm saying if Tom Hanks is like, no, I'm not doing it.
Well,
I really think Robert Wool has.
There's plenty of wide-eyed innocence. Like if I'm doing Robert Wool, like honestly, the role that Robert Wool could have played is the Bruce Campbell part.
He could have, I guess. But I think the moments in Batman that show me he could be the lead in the Hudsucker Proxy are just like straight up the parts where he's like talking to Vicky Vale and he's like actually looking out for her well-being. It's not the like, oh, I'm just jealous, but there are moments where like in his eyes you could just see like, oh, this is a very earnest
person. But sure, but I would never buy him as like a wide-eyed innocent. Like I think there's a difference between I can buy him as a good guy and buy him as a wide-eyed, naive innocent, and I just don't think I can buy him as a country bumpkin.
Robert Wool should have been in a Coen Brothers movie, though. I stand by that.
Yeah, like I said, put him in the Bruce Campbell part, and I think he would rock. Like, you know, like I could totally see him like taking some of the roles that, like, obviously I don't want to take any roles away from this guy, but like Tony Shalhoub styles, like Tony Shalhoub's part in Barton Fink, like. Could totally see
that. I feel like that one is like made for Shalhoub, but I do think that like
I mean the type of role. I don't necessarily.
Oh, sure. I mean, sure, but there are kinds of supporting parts where you're like you could give Robert Wool like not to take roles away from John Polito, but John Polito's part in The Big Lebowski could have been Robert Wool, like 100%.
You know what? I like John Polito in that. He always felt like a little miscast. Like John,
it's just weird that he's in it.
I honestly like. I think John Polito is a guy who they use kind of weirdly after Miller's Crossing, which is like he's perfect in Miller's Crossing, and then this kind of like I think his role in Barton Fink is kind of weird. Like he's the sniveling like lackey to Michael Lerner.
John Polito's only other usage in a Coen Brothers movie where I'm like that guy just hit a home run is the man who wasn't there.
Man Who Wasn't There is just a movie where like it doesn't come together as a whole, but there are so many like home run castings in that.
Oh yeah,
where I'm just like heck yeah, like Tony Shalhoub
Shalhoub is great in that movie, like really good.
He is. No, I completely agree. And Michael Badaluccio is really good.
Great. In that. Scarlett Johansson is really great in that one too, in a very young, early.
And Richard Jenkins. I really like
Richard Jenkins. Richard Jenkins is always great. Richard Jenkins has never been bad in a movie. Like I'll stand by that.
No, I'll actually give you that. He's like even great in his like 3 scenes in Cheaper by the Dozen.
Oh yeah, like Richard Jenkins has literally only elevated everything he's ever been in. But you know,
yeah,
we're just not going to give him an Oscar for whatever reason. It's fine. But
I can't say he should have been nominated for The Humans. Because he doesn't make my 5, but he is very.
I would have been so happy if he was nominated for The Humans and won. Like if he maybe not on a concert, but in a world where Coda doesn't exist and he wins for The Humans, it's not my vote, but I'd be happy with that. Like
they bungled the release of The Humans so bad.
So bad.
Jane Howdyshell actually should have been nominated. She
won the actual. She's the only person they brought back for the Tonys, and she's the only one who like won the Tony for The Humans for a reason. They brought her back for a reason. She's great.
Yeah, she's great.
Anyway,
let's get back to War of the Roses. This is what happens. On because you and I don't actually see each other all that often.
No, we don't.
Start having actual conversations when we should be talking about the movie.
Sure.
So you get the setup of Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner kind of falling in love, but you always
I love, which I love that. I love like them in the rain and their like immediate flirtation and they're like their whole thing at the auction that turns out in the rain and then oh, I have an idea, and they go and they hook up and like all of that. I love. I think they have really good chemistry.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had done 2 movies
Oh,
previously,
yeah.
with Jewel. So yeah, Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas work really well together, and I think it's really fun to kind of. I think because they have such natural chemistry that they're able to set up them as a couple really well, so then it can be torn down. Because I think if it's not believable that they would ever get together, this movie doesn't work.
Oh yeah, no, and I think that I feel like the thing with Michael Douglas, who I really like Michael Douglas in this. I think that
I do
he
too. I'm not a big
I
Michael Douglas guy, but I
I'm
really
not
like him.
either. I think Michael Douglas is used in very specific ways very well. And
Mhm.
it's the way they use him in The American President, which is where he's like really out of his element on natural casting, but like is still playing to the strengths of like I am intense and in charge, but I can be funny. And like that's so I think The American President is his best performance. But I love him in this because I think this plays to the most commercial sensibilities he has, where he's like, I'm a crotchety asshole. But I'm where he's like, I'm perpetually, even when I was 19, a 48-year-old man that's
This
got
is
problems.
like a cross between his performance in The American President and his performance in Wall Street.
True.
It's
And
honestly
like
no. Here's what it is. It's watching Andrew Shepard transform into Gordon Gekko.
true. Actually, great point. And I think that's what I like about this performance so much is that it's the most transformative he gets in a movie, I think, ever. Is just like he goes between the 2 modes he has so seamlessly and he gets to showcase the full range of his acting in this, where it's like this is I think this is the movie where you can see absolutely everything Michael Douglas has in him. He's not a very talented actor in the sense of like I can do a lot of things, but he's very good at like 3 or 4 things, and he gets to do all of them in one movie, which not every movie he gets to do all of it. So I like getting to see him do the whole gamut.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is like just kind of the perfect role for him, weirdly enough. He's very good
Yeah.
in this. Kathleen Turner, also not someone who I always love. I think she's incredibly funny in this.
I think she's the best part of the movie. I think
I would agree. I would agree.
she's really great. Like I think she is able to bring from the opening a manic energy that she maintains through the whole movie without missing a beat. And it works so well that the movie, like DeVito's able to contextualize that energy so well through perspective. Where at the beginning you think it's really playful and fun, and you'd be like, this is such a fun vibe to be around. To the point where then when that manic energy is now invested in wanting to ruin your life, you're like, holy shit, she's a crazy person. You're just like, this is like now you're You go from being like, this is charming to this is horrifying. And I think only Kathleen Turner in this movie like just rides a knife's edge balance between the two. She's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I really get on this movie's wavelength, and the moment when I really get on this movie's wavelength is, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, so stop me if I've gone too far. But once the divorce actually happens, that's when like this movie goes from really good to great for me. Cause then that's when this movie starts just getting ridiculous, and I love it.
When it keeps it the way it's a series of escalations,
Mm-hmm.
I think is comedy that doesn't always work for me. The escalation has to just keep getting absurder and absurder for me in like really I don't want to say specific, but like the escalating absurdity comedy doesn't always work for me. It works really well for me in things like Looney Tunes because they'll go even crazy. It's about how crazy can you get.
Yeah.
It's a race to how crazy can you get. And I don't think while this gets crazy, it starts to exhaust me a little bit by the end. I start to get worn out by
I think this gets really crazy towards the end. And
I mean, I think it's wild, but I feel like for me, there's a biting, like the movie's biting energy. These 2 characters are not pleasant people. And I know that's the point, but like
I mean, it's literally biting energy.
Yes. Well,
she literally bites his dick.
True. But like it wears thin on me by the end. It's a thing where it's like this is fun to be. This movie's runtime is just a touch too long for me. Where it's like if we cut this off 15 minutes sooner, I probably have a slightly higher opinion. Or like I can't give you moments that need to be cut or things that need to be done. But I just fully am like a little exhausted by the time we're out of this in a way that's like not fun exhausted, like not the come down of like, wow, that was like the end of Uncut Gems where you're like, oh my god, I'm exhausted from the fucking constant anxiety I had or anything. Or like After Hours where like you breathe at the end from the anxiety of it all. But like this is like it's by the time we're done, we're not even to the end yet. And I'm like, okay, can this movie be done yet? I'm tired of this.
That's interesting to me because I guess for me it's the opposite. This has like the Uncut Gems After Hours like energy for me where it just keeps escalating and I just love it. Like I just think I guess the thing is I really like escalating revenge movies. I really like movies where two characters like it's why it's not a comedy. But you ever see the movie Changing Lanes?
I have not. You've told me to watch this 1,000 times.
It's not a great movie, but Changing Lanes is a movie I love because I love the idea of two characters who keep getting revenge on each other and it keeps escalating and building. And I really, really love that. And I love, and it's why I really like another movie that we never got to talk about on this show, but a movie that I also really like featuring Danny DeVito, Tin Men. I really
I never loved that the way you did. I
yeah,
like this was
I think
okay.
this was. I maybe correct me if I'm wrong. If this is unfair to say, I just don't think these types of movies are your vibe. Maybe
probably not. Like no, that's not even like a crazy thing to say. You're right. Like this is not the type of comedy I would usually go for.
Mm-hmm.
On the whole, though, I would say I did enjoy this.
Okay.
I think that like I think my big issues is just with this is that I think it wears thin on my patience, and that's basically all there is to it. Is that like I think these need to be like 30, like a crisp 90 minutes in and out, and that's the thing I liked about like even with like Throw Mama from the Train is a brisk 88-minute watch, and that's one that I still feel like is unfocused and maybe even like focusing on the wrong things, but I appreciate that it's an 88 in and out. Like if this were 88 minutes in and out, I probably would give this a half star higher. Like I mean, like, all right, cool.
To me, this feels shorter than Throw Mama from the Train because, like, to me, I don't think there's anything I would cut out of this movie. I think this is just this hits every beat it needs to, in my opinion. This is just again, I really like that you have these two characters who are good, likable people who just slowly transform into these irredeemable monsters who are doing these ridiculous things. And I just find it equal parts hilarious. But it's like, but you're also like just watching these people just slowly mutate into the worst versions of themselves. It's like if Marriage Story was a comedy. It's just
right. And here's my thing. I don't know if I would enjoy Marriage Story at all if it were a comedy. That's my problem.
That's fair. And
that's also the thing I was like alluding to before we even got on call. I've watched a lot of movies recently with this subject matter that I'd never seen. Like I saw Kramer versus Kramer for the first time like a week ago before, like in proximity to this. And like I loved that. I think that movie was amazing. And I love Marriage Story. So I can get down with the like, okay, we're doing the divorce story and having moments of levity. But like I think that making a comedy out of it is a great idea, and they do the idea of this well. It's just not something that I think I would ultimately be the audience for.
You know, that's fair. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I think that's valid. I really like that. I really like the escalating dark comedy. And that this just really works for me. And I do think it's partially because I just really like, again, I really like the way DeVito's direction and like the way this is shot. Like I love how at the start it kind of feels almost like a fairy tale, and then it just slowly turns more into a nightmare. I really like that about this. There's just so many things like the pate with the dog and the car, like so many dark and like Michael Douglas peeing into the food. Like there's so much that I love just the lengths that which these people go to screw each other over.
I guess that's fair. The element of this that I looked at very like to sort of pivot. The element of this that threw me off, a couple ways because I kept seeing the face and I couldn't place it, and then I finally had the light bulb moment. Is when I look at his kid and realize it's fucking Sean Astin.
You didn't realize that was Sean Astin?
For whatever, he's so like slender in this movie. He's like got a very thin face in this movie.
And it's also one of those things. You haven't seen Rudy, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well that makes sense. If you had watched, I watched Rudy a lot as a kid. So like my dad's a Notre Dame fan. So like,
I mean, yeah. I think the thing
he's
for me
Jed
is
Bartlett. Let's be real. He's Jed Bartlett.
Your dad is Jed Bartlett. When it comes to Sean Astin, my only like mental images of him are from the year 2000 and after. I only know him really from like the Lord of the Rings, Mom's Night Out, whatever Christian movie he pops up in randomly.
Do you believe?
Do you believe? And he's just gained,
Click?
you know.
Click?
Oh, and Click. I forget he's in Click. But he's just with he's very. What's the nice bit? His face is very full. Now.
He has a round face. He's a
very round face. And so I only know him as like older, round-faced man. So to see him as like this really thin, young guy, I was like, there's something. I was like, I couldn't get over the eyes. I was like, I know these eyes. I don't know why. And then it's like in the Christmas scene where the tree goes on fire, which I love. Is the moment where he gets to have like a moment and he talks and like you see the eyes and he like did something where I was like, oh my god, it's Samwise Gamgee. I was like, what the hell?
That's fair. Right. Well, I feel like do we want to talk about the ending a little bit, especially because we didn't love the ending of Throw Mama from the Train.
Right. That was the thing that I was sort of holding on to the edge of my seat a little bit coming to the ending because I was like, how does DeVito land this bird? Because I basically my one thing I was like, I need to see DeVito do is end the movie. I was like, I need to see you end the land, like stick the landing on one of these.
And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this ending?
I don't know how I feel, to be honest with you. I
think that's a completely valid reaction to this ending.
I think there were I basically when they present you with the possibility of two endings, essentially, where they're like, there are two ways this can go. And it goes the route of seemingly civility when they kind of tee up what would have been another 20 minutes of movie that probably would have been the most cathartic way to end the movie and like have it end out with like a hashing it out in court with like just absolute vicious, like basically do the ending of Kramer versus Kramer with so much cynicism that it would kill Aaron Sorkin. But like I feel like them opting to take the route of like, all right, he's just gonna call and say I love you and I'll be home soon, and they're gonna go home and they're gonna. I just don't really know. Basically, I'm left in that moment where I'm like, what? Will this end viciously or will this actually be okay? Is where you're left with, to me.
Were you paying attention to the ending?
Well, yeah, he calls his wife and says, I love you, I'm on my way home. Like, that's the...
Who does?
Isn't it? It's Gavin. The Danny DeVito. And I like how that...
Okay, yeah. I thought you were talking about Michael Douglas, and I was...
No. I like how Danny DeVito teased that up, and it feels similar. You know what I mean? Where it's like I do like how that's a weird like Danny DeVito.
Because like they literally die. Barbara dies.
Right.
So
I meant no, I know, but I mean
Oh.
like where they were talking about doing this in court, right? That's like he talks about how this could go to court. What are you talking about? Yes, I like, okay, to pause and rewind. Danny DeVito's ending, which is the one I thought we were talking about, which is the final scene of the movie,
Okay, fair.
where he's like where he's
But
talking to
how
his
would that
client, and then
create
he closes
20
him up.
more minutes of movie?
No, but the setup that they tease you up to do before everything goes haywire, where he talks to them about like, you go to court, this could be crazy, blah blah blah. The way that they all end in blood is not what I expected. How that ends was crazy, and I went, okay, that fits. Them ending that way fits. And what the expectation I had is they were going to do Kramer versus Kramer with cynicism. That's what I thought they were going to do. What I like about the ending with Danny DeVito, and don't like at the same time, is that Danny DeVito is then given that ending where he's like, I love you, I'll be home soon, which is like what Michael Douglas says earlier in the movie on the phone with the fucking scene earlier. And I think DeVito delivers it well enough that you would believe the optimism of it. But part of me in the back of my mind is so beaten from this movie that I'm like, oh my fucking God, are we going to just get the cyclical ending? But that would not be set up by DeVito's entire arc of the movie. But the back of my mind with how they did, like, basically, I was traumatized by the ending of Throw Mama from the Train and the movie I just watched into being like, I don't think DeVito intends this to be a cyclical thing. But I still have that momentary, like, bells are going off of is this going to be a commentary on how this will never end and this is constantly going to be
I mean, I kind of think it can be interpreted in both ways, which I kind of like.
I mean, that's fair. I do like the way that what I do really like before the phone call is the way he talks to the client, where he's like, go home, talk to your wife, be civil, where he basically is like exacerbated by the story, is like, just take this the right way. And if that was the end of the movie and it ended there, I feel like I'd feel better. Like,
I
just
mean,
maybe a 10
it's
better.
literally like 15, 20 extra seconds after.
No, I know, but 20 seconds can change your entire perception of a movie. But I feel like those last 20 seconds don't ruin the movie for me at all. It's just, I feel like it feels like he went for a dunk, and I don't know if he stuck the dunk.
Fair.
Like, it should have been a layup, and I feel like it's just it might be just a flourish too far for me. I, on the whole, would say I was left very shook by the ending up to the DeVito. So DeVito's whole wrap up to me is like, okay, you need to put a bow on this so I can sit during end credits and go, holy shit, everyone just fucking died.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Maybe I'm like over analyzing his ending too much.
I kind of feel like you are a little bit, but
I don't know. I feel like it's an ending that could have on paper been like, okay, awesome. Like, I love the dichotomy. But I don't, I guess this goes back to me thinking Danny DeVito is maybe the wrong actor for that part, even as much fun as he is.
That's fair. I really like
like if Robert Wool gets in the car and goes, I love you, I'll see you when I get home. I honestly would believe that more as like, okay, genuine, we're done. But I don't know. There's something about DeVito being so like sleazy throughout this movie that I don't. And again, with the last movie, him being a killer or an attempted killer is, which is not fair on this movie. But it's the image we have of DeVito in the series so far, which is like, I don't know. I just don't know how to buy what DeVito's trying to say with his final moments of the movie.
That's fair.
But I do think the ending is great up to that point. Like, I think it's like really, I don't know.
Yeah, like that's the thing is unlike Throw Mama from the Train, which feels like a pulling of punches. This feels like a logical conclusion.
Right. Like when Barbara like pushes his hand away, like down to the end, it's just pure it's pure hatred to the end. There is so much rage in this movie. This movie has such a mean spirit to it and like a bite to it that I just like it's hard for me to sit down and love that kind of movie.
That's,
But I think it works really well into that over the top craziness of an ending.
that's valid. Right. Well, do we have any more to say about the movie?
I mean, not really. Like, I mean, the thing that I think is wild about it is like it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the BAFTA that year, and I feel like
Dope nomination. I
of
really
all the things you would nominate this movie for, that is not what I would have nominated this movie for.
I mean, okay, let me look at my personal nominations for that year because I do nominate. I think I nominate Kathleen Turner. I know that.
I would nominate Kathleen Turner, which Turner and Douglas get nominated for the Golden Globes, and lose to Tandy and Freeman for Driving Miss Daisy, which is stupid.
I actually never mind. I don't nominate Kathleen Turner.
Oh wow.
You know what? No, I do. I'm gonna put Kathleen Turner in over Jessica Tandy for Driving Miss Daisy. She is better than Jessica Tandy.
Also, to detour now, sort of tangential to the movie, and go into what we love to do, which is talk about awards season all the time. The Golden Globes that year are really fucking cool. Like, this is one of the coolest Golden Globe classes I have ever seen. So in drama, which is like whatever, Born on the 4th of July wins and beats Crimes and Misdemeanors, Dead Poet Society, Do the Right Thing, and Glory, which is like hella good class.
Crimes and Misdemeanors is in drama.
Well, right, and then you look at comedy and musical, and Driving Miss Daisy wins, beating The Little Mermaid, Shirley Valentine, The War of the Roses, and When Harry Met Sally. So like that's a wild that's a great lineup of 10 movies. And then you go deeper into like the nominees, right? Into like performances. So like you have Williams, Day-Lewis, and Cruise in actor, and Cruise wins drama. But they throw in Jack Lemmon for dad, which like is like the one thing that movie got the Oscars was makeup because Rick Baker like designed his face all old, even though Jack Lemmon at that point is old. And Al Pacino for Sea of Love, which like that's just probably because he was Pacino. And you have Pfeiffer winning for Fabulous Baker Boys, and Sally Field, Steel Magnolias, Annie McDowell, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Liv Ullmann, Rose Garden, Jessica Lange, Music Box. But the category that I want to give you that I think is maybe the coolest, best actor, musical, or comedy lineup I have ever seen. Take away that Morgan Freeman wins for Driving Miss Daisy. The other four nominees.
He is good in that movie. I don't nominate him on my Oscars, but
Morgan Freeman has really never been bad in a movie to me. Even in like the like stand-up guys, Las Vegas type of things, he's always fun. Like those movies aren't good, but he's at least having fun. Okay, that class that Morgan Freeman beat is my boy Billy Crystal for When Harry Met Sally.
He should have been nominated. He's great.
Michael Douglas for The War of the Roses.
If you're going musical or comedy, makes sense to nominate, yeah.
Steve Martin for Parenthood.
Sure.
And probably the coolest nomination I've ever seen. Jack Nicholson for Batman.
Okay, wait, in lead actor?
In lead actor, musical or comedy.
You know what? No.
He was top billed, and he is in a lot of that movie.
You know what? I think Nicholson is in that movie more than Keaton, actually, now that I think about it.
I think if you do a screen time comparison, they're almost equal, if not more, in Nicholson's favor. Like, you can make a good argument that Nicholson is a lead of that movie.
You know what? Fair.
But
Jack Nicholson, Batman in musical or comedy is weird.
That is ridiculous. Putting Batman in musical or comedy is purely because your villain is called the Joker. That is the only reason they did it.
To print songs. That's like what.
Oh, yeah. Fucking ridiculous. Though they did also, in the actor side, nominate Meg Ryan and Kathleen Turner. Also, they nominated in that year Sean Connery for Best Supporting Actor for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and that is a great nomination.
He would not make my 5 that year.
You ass. Oh, Rob Reiner got in for director for When Harry Met Sally.
I'm going to give you my 5, and you tell me if you have any objections to it, okay? Sure. Philip Norrie for Cinema Paradiso. You haven't seen Cinema Paradiso. Willem Dafoe for Born on the 4th of July. You haven't seen Born on the 4th of July. Danny Aiello for Do the Right Thing. Can't argue with me on that.
I think Connery's better, but okay.
Giancarlo Esposito for Do the Right Thing.
That one is closer, but fair.
And my winner, Denzel for Glory.
Okay, yeah, fair. But Sean Connery's awesome, and I love him, and he should have been nominated. Though it's wild to see Rob Reiner get nominated for Best Director for Inherent Met Sally also that year. That's kind of
That's
wild.
fair. He would not make my 5.
I feel like that's kind of wild. That's just a really cool, like, you go look at the.
Oh, like he would definitely probably make my 7, but not my 5.
Oh yeah, that's just a very cool Golden Globes. Like the Golden Globes, when they would nominate animated movies in the Best Picture categories, are always the coolest years. Because if you go look at Best Picture Musical or Comedy in a couple different years, like in 1999 they gave Best Picture Musical or Comedy to Toy Story 2, and in 94 they gave it to The Lion King, and those are just like really cool wins.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty and the Beast won in 91 for musical or comedy, like that's just cool.
Yeah.
So,
okay, well,
sometimes they're fun.
Do we have anything more to say about War of the Roses? I don't think we do.
I think we got nothing left. So now we do the ranking for ourselves, and for me, it's Throw Mama from the Train 2, War of the Roses 1.
Same here. And next week, talking about a movie that I've never seen, and you've never seen.
No. We both watched a 4-hour version of this film called The Irishman. But now we get to see if Danny DeVito can one-up Martin Scorsese and tell the story of Jimmy Hoffa.
With that mindset.
I'm very interested to see Jack Nicholson play Jimmy Hoffa. Like, because my only like mental picture for that person, like my only mental image of Jimmy Hoffa is Al Pacino. So like Jack Nicholson is like as good in most people's minds as Al Pacino as an actor, if not better. And I'm very excited to see him play Hoffa.
So. I have seen clips of him.
Is he bad?
And I don't want to judge based on those clips.
Oh, is he bad?
But I think he's kind of overdoing it a little bit, but we'll see.
Well, this is also in the run post Batman, where like Nicholson's in like a wasteland of like 2 Jakes and Wolf and like the Crossing Guard and a bunch of random shit he does before he does As Good as It Gets and like finds his like I'm about to retire niche run.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Fine. Well, that'll be next week. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you later.